If everything has already been written, if your destiny was whispered into being before you even took your first breath, then what is the meaning of prayer? Why do the lips still tremble? Why do the hands still rise toward the heavens? What secret moves a heart that already knows its fate is sealed? These are not questions of the mind alone. They are the cries of the soul in its midnight solitude, the trembling of a being who stands between knowledge and surrender. The intellect demands answers, but the heart seeks union. According to Ibn Arabi, prayer is not a transaction. It is not the act of telling God something he does not already know. It is not a negotiation between servant and master. Prayer is remembrance, dhikr. It is the echo of the divine name returning to its source. It is not asking, but awakening. When you stand to pray, you are not performing a ritual. You are answering a call that was placed in you long before you could speak its words. Every syllable you utter is not your own. It is God speaking himself through you. Prayer, Ibn Arabi says, is not your initiative. It is his invitation. When you pray, it is not you who begin the conversation. It is he who desired to be known through your voice. And so he placed upon your tongue the words you now whisper back to him. The modern heart imagines prayer as a request, a means to obtain, to secure, to fulfill. But in truth, prayer is not about acquiring something you lack. It is about returning to what you already are, a reflection of the divine will. If destiny is written, then prayer does not change the writing, it changes the reader. You do not alter what has been decreed, you awaken to its meaning. The same destiny that once felt like a cage reveals itself as a doorway to intimacy. When you raise your hands, you are not changing the world. You are allowing the world to change you. The script was always written, but prayer unfolds its hidden beauty within your heart. Prayer is not about results. It is about recognition. It does not move the heavens to grant your wish. It moves your soul to remember its origin. For the one who truly prays does not bring the ego into the conversation. If the I remains, then prayer is still veiled in desire. True prayer begins only when the self dissolves. In that dissolution, something vast opens, a stillness that is not empty, but alive. It is the silence of presence. It is the recognition that you were never separate. You were never calling out to a distant God. You were responding to the one already breathing within you. The Sufi masters teach, prayer is not your will seeking his. It is his will revealing itself through yours. Every yearning that rises from your chest, every tear that falls without reason, is already written in his knowledge. You do not choose to pray. You are chosen for prayer. And so when you stand in the stillness of the night and you whisper your needs, understand that those needs were placed in you by the one who answers them. He desires to hear his own names upon your lips. He desires to see his own light reflected in your surrender. The ego says, I prayed, but I did not receive. But the heart replies, in praying, I already received. The act itself is the gift. For in prayer, you are not changing your circumstances. You are revealing your soul. When Ibn Arabi prayed, his words were not, grant me this, deliver me that. They were, erase me in you, let me not return to myself. For in that erasure lies the highest form of existence, the moment when the servant disappears and only God remains. When the servant bows, the world bows with him. Every atom in creation bends in silent praise. The mountains, though unmoving, are in sujud. The rivers recite without tongue. The stars whisper without sound. And the human being who believes he is small is in truth a gathering place of all those praises. His prayer carries the voice of the universe back to its maker. You ask, why should I pray if he already knows? Because prayer is not about informing, it is about transforming. You were not created to tell God what he does not know. You were created to witness what he is revealing through you. Every prayer is a mirror. In it, you see yourself stripped of illusion. In that reflection, the heart begins to know its poverty. And what is poverty before God? It is not lack. It is freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of selfhood. The poor in spirit are not those who have nothing, but those who own nothing, not even their will. They say, "Nothing belongs to me, not even my longing." Such a one has already prayed, even in silence. When the Sufis speak of surrender, they do not mean defeat. They mean unveiling, the lifting of the veil that hid the truth that everything was his all along. To surrender is to awaken to reality. It is to stop resisting the current that was always carrying you home. Do not mistake surrender for passivity. It is the highest act of intelligence. It is the soul's recognition that the ocean cannot be steered by the wave. Prayer, then, is not a request to the ocean. It is the wave remembering that it is water. The mystics say, the prayer that changes destiny is the prayer that changes the self. When you change, your world changes because the world was never outside you. It was the reflection of your inner state. When the heart becomes clear, the reflection becomes divine. In the school of Ibn Arabi, prayer is a meeting point between the eternal and the temporal, between what is known and what is unveiled. He says, the servant prays only because God desires to be known in that form of prayer. So when you kneel, it is not you approaching him. It is he manifesting himself through your humility. This is the secret of nearness, that there was never distance. You travel toward him only to discover that he was within your breath. You call upon him, and the echo you hear is his response that was already present before you spoke. Therefore, do not judge prayer by outcome. Judge it by awakening. If your heart trembles, if your eyes soften, if you feel the veil thinning between you and the real, then your prayer has been answered. Sometimes the answer comes in silence. Sometimes it comes in waiting. Sometimes it comes in a wound that opens the heart wide enough for light to enter. Whatever shape it takes, it is always mercy disguised in the clothing of your moment. Do not rush to interpret your life. Allow prayer to interpret it for you. For the one who prays truly learns to see, to read the divine handwriting on every event. In that reading, every joy becomes gratitude, every pain becomes purification. And yet the ego protests. If he knows, why must I ask? Because asking is not for his knowledge, it is for your awakening. The asking is the moment your heart breaks open. And in that opening, he enters. The one who has everything waits for your emptiness, because emptiness is the only space wide enough for him to dwell. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when words begin to fade. The tongue still moves, but the heart has gone quiet. This is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of arrival. The prayer that once felt like calling now feels like listening. You realize that all along it was he who was speaking through you, and you were merely learning the rhythm of his voice. At this depth, prayer is no longer speech. It becomes breath. Each inhalation becomes a remembrance, each exhalation an act of surrender. Even if the lips are still, the soul continues to pray. The Sufis call this the prayer of the heart, for it is not measured by sound or time, but by presence. When you reach this state, you no longer ask for things to happen. You begin to ask only for clarity to see what already is. You do not pray for the storm to pass. You pray to find God within the storm, and when you see him there, the storm no longer frightens you. The mystics say, the one who prays for patience is already patient, for the prayer itself is proof that patience has been planted in him. Likewise, the one who prays for forgiveness has already been forgiven, for the yearning to be cleansed is itself a spark of divine mercy. Ibn Arabi teaches that prayer is the mirror in which the servant beholds his own reality. Each time you stand before your Lord, you are not simply speaking. You are being shown who you are. Your intentions, your attachments, your fears, they all rise before you, not for judgment, but for purification. Prayer, then, is a fire. It burns away what is false until only sincerity remains. Do not fear the burning, for the fire does not destroy gold. It reveals it. Your pain, your longing, your waiting, these are not punishments. They are refinements. They polish the mirror until only his reflection remains. When the servant reaches this station, he no longer prays for outcomes. He prays for awareness. He no longer says, "Change my situation," but "Change me within the situation." And when he changes, the situation is transformed not because the world has altered, but because his sight has been cleansed. This is what the saints mean when they say, prayer does not move the mountain. It moves the heart. And a heart moved by God sees no mountain. Every delay, every denial, every silence of heaven is not rejection. It is education. It teaches you the difference between desire and devotion. Desire says, "Give me what I want." Devotion says, "Give me what brings me to you." And sometimes what brings you to him is not what you once prayed for. So the Sufi learns to trust. He prays not to demand, but to return. Every breath becomes a journey home. Every sigh becomes a verse of scripture written within the chest. Even tears become verses, for tears are the ink of sincerity. Ibn Arabi says, "When you have learned to ask, you have already received." The act of asking is itself the receiving. When the heart lifts itself toward the divine, it has already touched the answer. For the answer is not a thing, it is presence, and presence is the essence of prayer. Thus, the true miracle of prayer is not that the world changes for you, but that you awaken within it. What once felt heavy becomes sacred. What once felt random becomes revelation. You begin to read every event as a line from a hidden book, and in that book, there are no mistakes. At that moment, destiny is no longer a chain. It becomes a melody, and prayer is the rhythm that allows you to dance to it.